Okay, welcome back. The last time we met, we put together some 2-week rolling schedules. I wanted you to be able to see how the master schedule was going to translate to actual, crew management on the side of the project. So, I would like you to understand something. This software and this system is a tool for you to use to see and understand what's happening on your project before it happens. So if you've ever watched a movie, a military movie or documentary where they have the big table with simulated terrain and they're using sticks to push tanks and troops around on there and kind of simulating war, that's what this is right here. And you're gonna be surprised because the data comes right from the estimate. It means that it's going to be very accurate, especially as you evolve and learn what your time frames are on certain activities, and you can adjust that in your estimating software to get things very accurate. That accuracy translates to the field. It translates to the things that you do in the field. And you're going to start making decisions on how to manage your project right here in this software, and then you're going to see them come true in reality. And you're going to be able to identify problem areas before they become problem areas, and people are going to doubt you. Okay? Now, we already talked about the compass in the forest, and it always points north. Well, this software always points north as well. And you can believe it, and you can trust it. And when someone tells you you're full of beans, you know what? Just shake your head and keep moving forward. Don't listen to them. This is the reality right here. This will be your reality. It will become your reality. Trust me on that. Now, sometimes I hear from people, well, gosh, it's just so hard to keep up this, software, and I'm constantly moving things around and changing. And well, since the software predicts your reality, if you're having chaos in the software and chaos in your schedule, I'll guarantee you're having chaos out on your site. You're predicting chaos. You're projecting chaos. You're creating chaos. Okay? That's why you need to use this tool to smooth that chaos out. So when it translates to the field, okay, it's not chaos anymore. Now, I'm currently working on a project. I was actually hired to manage a different project, but I was invited to this project to kind of learn the contractor's means and methods. So I'm observing. And because the ground here is so bad, the cables, it's a solar site, so there's MV cables and there's DC cables, but those cables have to be bedded in sand. Can't use the native soil. It's just not we can't process it into something that's suitable for backfill. So we have to bring in sand to bed the cables. And, times are good in America now, and particularly in Texas where I'm at. And it seems that there's a shortage of truckers. Freight prices for long haul trucking appear to have gone way up. And that's kind of where the money is for truckers. So guys who do local haul sand from a sand pit to a job site are more scarce, okay? And they've been struggling to get sand. Basically, that combined with the fact that we've been experiencing a lot of rain that shuts our job down for a couple days a week, so these truckers get on a flow hauling sand, then all of a sudden they get 2 days off that they could have been working somewhere else, and then they don't want to come here anymore. Sand has been a real problem. And I watched this for probably a month. We can't run our backfill crew on MV in DC today because we don't have any sand. So, we're going to have to put those guys somewhere. They don't want to not work them, which would be the, probably smarter thing to do. But they don't want to do that, and I understand why, because those people are exactly the same. They can go find a job down the street where they can work every day, and you start laying them down a couple days a week. It starts hurting their paycheck, and then they go, you know what, I don't want to work at that site anymore. So they got to keep them busy. So then, since they don't have sand, they got to put them somewhere else, and they don't really need them there because I already have a crew there. Or if they do need them, that crew leader, that foreman for that crew has to train them to do what they're doing because they haven't done it before. And it takes him several days just to get them trained, and by the time he gets them trained, then they take them away. You see what I'm getting at? It's total chaos. And when you see that in your schedule here, and the problem for them is they don't have a schedule and they can't see it. They can't see the damage that they're doing every day, and they think this stuff makes sense. Okay, but when you can see it, then it's easy to convince people, hey, we got to fix this problem. This is a big problem. This is creating havoc in our schedule and on our job site, and this just needs to be fixed. And I got so frustrated, it's not really my job, but I went to the project manager and I said, you got to fix this. You got to fix it right now. This is a big problem for you. And, I guess he was able to speak to the right people and convince them I was right, and then they started looking for solutions like renting trucks and drivers and having their own people go get the sand, and looking for different contractors, and but this went on so long it just absolutely slaughtered them. So what I'm getting at is, this is a tool. This will predict what's going to happen on your site before it happens. You'll be able to see, like a crystal ball, what's coming before it gets to you. And you need to trust it, and you need to believe it. Because you need to solve those problems that are coming at you before they get to you to keep a nice, smooth flow. And if you're experiencing chaos here, if this is difficult, putting this schedule together and managing it is difficult, then you need to understand that your project's difficult too. The chaos that you experience here is what's going on out in your field. that's why you need to keep this calm and settled and moving a good flow to it. Because if it's not flowing here on this computer screen, you can damn sure bet it's not flowing out there in the field. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some other tools that can help manage that flow. Let me just change screens here and we'll get started. Okay, so as you guys know, I'm currently on location at a project, which means that I'm living in my fifth wheel trailer, and I just wanted to mention that I'm currently going through a rainstorm, so you'll probably hear some thunder in the background, and you might even hear the rain on the roof. I want to apologize for that, but as you know, my time's very limited and I need to get this out to you, so I'm going to press on here and hopefully it won't be an issue for you. So, hopefully you've done your work and now your schedule looks something like this right here. This is your master schedule. Now we're going to add another layer to this to help you manage and control your project better. So I'm going to change screens one more time. I wanted to start here, but I'm going to change screens one more time. I'm going to show you where we're headed now. Okay? Okay, this is a project that I completed recently. It was a solar project. It was carport structures, and well, let's just say there was plenty of chaos on this project, especially in the beginning. I was responsible for managing the structural subcontractor who was building the carports and self-performing the electrical. And the structural contractor was not performing very well. And so I called my customer and had a conversation with them, and early on, my little crystal ball here predicted that I was heading in a bad direction, and I let them know that their structural contractor wasn't performing, and that by that time, several weeks into the project, I had no reason to believe that they would perform well. And so we had a little discussion, and this particular customer has a lot of confidence in me. I've managed multiple projects for them, and basically they told me, this is why we hired you, to manage this project and solve these problems. And if we have to remove that contractor, we'll do that, but that's messy work, and I didn't want to take them there, okay? Because that involves lawsuits after the project's done and things that linger on and on. My other solution was, you convince your subcontractor that I'm going to take over their crew and basically their portion of the work. We're going to use them, but if I need something on site and it's not here because they haven't ordered it or just made those arrangements, then I'm going to get it here and you're going to pay for it. And at the end of the project, you're going to have to settle up with them. And so we agreed that that would be our path forward. So we scheduled a call with the subcontractor to let them know, you are having some major problems, you're delaying our project, there's liquidated damages at the end, and this is a very important client for my customer, and we need to complete on time. That's why they hired us, because we have a history of completing projects for them on time. And that contractor just made excuses and tried to minimize issues and basically tell my customer that I was exaggerating things. And so I got a little frustrated with them, and basically I'll just say I ended that call abruptly and went to work. Basically took over their crew and the management of their project, and if something wasn't there, material or equipment wise, I just got it out there and we pushed through. This customer was savvy enough to know that they've had these issues in the past, and they had the money in the project to go this direction. And at the end, of course, they did have to settle up, and it cost them a little money, but I beat my electrical budget, created a windfall there, and they battled through their issues on who was responsible for what. Basically, the subcontractor didn't make any money on the project. I tried to help him all the way through, even as disorganized and difficult to deal with as they were. I tried to do my best to manage his portion responsibly, because I knew there would be some arguments at the end, and I wanted to be on the right side of that. But that's not what I brought you here for. That's just an explanation for how scattered. You can see how disorganized. I fought a lot of issues on this project. But because I could see them coming, I think I managed them well, and I guess did the best I could for both, and ultimately made my customer money, and they were happy with the results and completed on time. So their client was happy as well. But what I want to talk about are these orange rows right here. And I'm just going to call these action items. These are things that need to happen before this phase of construction can actually start, okay? So if we drop down here to their first carport, which was called Building 1, if I deselect these tasks, okay, so before anyone goes out to start this task right here, I want to make sure that these items have been taken care of. If I'm sitting in my office somewhere, or if my customer is in their office and they want to look at what's happening on my project, no one should be starting this work right here until these 3 items have been checked off as complete, okay? Because they're not ready. So what we need to do now is take our schedule, and we need to think about what equipment are we going to need on site, what material are we going to need on site, what personnel are we going to need on site, and make sure that we create an action item for that, so those items can be checked off prior to our field crews arriving on site and starting any work. Or we already know that we're headed for trouble, right? If the right equipment's not there and the crew shows up, that's a problem. If the material is not on site and the crew shows up, that's a problem. So anything you can think of that needs to be in place prior to a task starting needs to have action items in front of it, and those need to be checked off. Either by the project manager or the foreman on site, a superintendent. It can be delegated any way that you want, and these action items can be dished out to several different people. Someone has to be responsible for them, and they need to be checked off prior to any task starting. Okay, so now we'll go back into our project, and I'll show you how to create these and get them entered in, so that we can have a good view of what needs to happen prior to the task starting. Okay, now normally, since I handle projects cradle to grave, I will create a pre-construction phase, and under that I'll list things like permitting and IFC drawings and signed contracts and just those project management things that need to happen before you can even start a project, because I want to track those activities as well. This course is for Foreman, and all of that should be taken care of before you get on site. But if you are looped in and tracking that portion of the work, the permitting, the engineering, the contract, budgeting, things like that, you'll probably want to create a phase of construction, label it pre-construction, and put your things in there like shopping out your job site trailer if you're going to have one, connexes, just anything that needs to happen before your project begins and your crew gets on site. So what you need to do is you need to go through every one of these phases of construction, and you need to consider what items you need to have in place prior to starting that work. Now, this is underground work, so here we would probably want a backhoe on site. If you're in the same position we are now with having to bed conduits in sand, you may want to have some sand delivered. Obviously, you'd want to have your underground material package on site before your crew shows up. Maybe you need a forklift to unload that material. Maybe you want to set a connex there so that you can get tools in there. Just anything you can think of that needs to happen prior to starting those tasks, you want to get listed right here. And you need to think deep, because if you forget something and the crew shows up and goes to work and they don't have something that they need, a critical item, shame on you, right? But it forces you to look at each phase of construction and consider what items you're going to need there. And then you have a good record of it so that you can track those items and check them off, get them checked off prior to starting that series of tasks, okay? So let me show you how to do that, and we're going to switch pages here. And we're going to create some tasks. So I'm going to add a new task, and let's just call it backhoe. I'm going to want one of those on site, right? For these types of tasks, I generally don't schedule any supervision or material handling. That would come in if you issue a separate task for them to receive those materials. For the sake of argument, I'm just and there may be times when you want to include that in there, but I'm just going to leave that out for right now. It shouldn't be included in an action item. It would be a separate task that you would create for that, and then you would include it in there. So first of all, it's going to be a milestone task. That's what we're going to call it here. We don't want it showing up on our job summary report, okay, because that's where all the accounting is, and this is just an action item that we're going to tick off. There's no real labor associated with these. And so we also don't want it on any timesheets. It's not a task that we're going to track the labor cost of. It's something that should just be taken care of with phone calls or online or things like that, and then checked off when they're complete. We do want it to show up on the Gantt chart because it's something that we want to be aware of before we start our task. So we'll click Add Task. And then I'm going to add underground material on site. Tick off the same boxes, add task, and let's add in a Connex. Store some materials in. Now, I'd like you to analyze all of these phases of construction and add your own things in there. So if you want to expand this list, please do. But I'd like you to go through all of these phases of construction and list some action items that need to be included prior to them starting, and get your schedule built out so that you're ready to begin your project. I'm just going to show you how to do the first few, and then I'm going to turn you loose and let you do your work. Okay, I'll add this one in. Then I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to go into our phases. I'm going to select that underground feeder conduit. I'm going to add 3 rows because I just created 3 action items. Then I'm going to select them. So one was our backhoe. One was underground material on site. And the last one was the Connex. So there they are. Now we need to add just 1 hour in here, and all that's going to do is give us a placeholder on our Gantt chart. It's not going to track that hour. We're not going to schedule that hour, but in order to get it a place on the Gantt chart, it does need to have at least 1 hour entered in. So then we're going to click Update. And once that's done, we still need to order our tasks. Now these are in the proper order, but the program doesn't understand that until we go through this process. So we're going to click Order Tasks. We're going to move all of these over, and then we're just going to accept the sort order, and that lets the program know that this is our official order of our tasks for that phase of construction. So I'll save that, and then we'll close this out, and this will snap. You see it just blink right there. It's just registering it in. And once we do that, then we can go to our Gantt chart. So we'll open that up. Now it'll take this a minute to load depending on how big your schedule is and how involved it is and how good or bad your internet connection is. It could take some time. I don't have a perfect connection here, so it's a little bit slow, but I'll teach you a little trick. If you go back over to the phase tab and just let this wind right here, it'll generally populate itself quicker if you're not sitting on that page. Okay, just a little tip for you. Once that stops spinning, then we can open that back up. You can see that our milestones have been entered here. Now it is assigning 10 workers to each task because the program does default at 10 workers per task. So we don't want that to muddy up our manpower list at the bottom of the chart, so we're just going to make it 0. So it's not necessary to have any manpower associated with those in order for them to register here. Now, you can select dates for this to happen. Obviously, you'd probably want it to happen prior to December 31st, so that things are ready when they get there. We could schedule that back a bit if we wanted to. So let's just say the 28th. I think I need to reset my wireless internet. Every once in a while it starts running a little slow, but I'm just going to muddle through this for right now. Okay, and then actually I'm going to go back to phases and restart this. I could have just selected refresh, but generally when you work on a phase of construction, when you click refresh, it's only going to bring back that phase of construction. So I just instead went back to phases and made it populate everything. I'll switch over to this screen so that'll spin out quick. And once it stops, we'll go back. Now we have our list of items scheduled to take place prior to anyone showing up on site. Okay, so I would like you to go through these other phases of construction. On this underground branch, for example, maybe you just want to use a trencher there since it's smaller conduit. You may need to order some rebar cages for your light bollards, right? Maybe an auger to punch the holes for the backhoe. Just whatever you think you might need. Let's get some action items listed for all of these phases of construction right here, and then we'll be ready to take the next step. Okay, you guys have a good week. I appreciate you, and let's get this work done through here, and we'll continue on next week. Thanks.